Hey everybody, it's Doom here from Dungeons and Doom Biscuit. And if you saw me check out this Fantasy Series 1 by Blacklist Miniatures that had 70 minis in it, one of the minis that came in there, well there was 5 of them actually, was this cool worm. And even though this wasn't an intensely great set, these worms are amazing, and I'd like to use them in my Western campaign as creatures that have been drinking element X in their water supply and have mutated. So what I have here are 4 of them, and I thought I'd go through some different techniques of how to paint them up and see what we can do. So the first thing I did was I spray painted them with a flat black primer, and I let them thoroughly cure and dry with I used a hot air gun, and then I dry brushed them in white. So let's see some techniques we can use to paint these up real quick and real easy. So I know I want them to have a dark side and a light side for sure on each one. And a little bit of different paints wouldn't be horrible or hurtful. So the first thing I'm going to do is, if you look here, this top part is like armor plated and this bottom part's like ribbed. So I'm going to do the bottom part first. This is Golden Sunset. It's just craft paint. I'm going to do this first one with all craft paint and see what we can do with it. I'm going to get a size 1 brush. This is a Army Painter starter brush I'm using. And I don't want this brush to be omega saturated. I did dampen it with my mouth. And I'm not getting in any of the cracks. I'm not aiming for the cracks. I want this to be a quick paint job. So what we want to do is we want to drag the brush across, lightening this up, but not with so much paint that we're dragging it into every crack. We want those to stay dark. You can save yourself some effort on washes and stuff like that using a technique like this. Does not provide the most beautiful. The way I'm doing this does not provide the most beautiful paint job, but it does make a decent paint job that you can throw on the table very quickly. Okay. So as you can see, the natural darkness from the way I base coated it and dry brushed it is providing a lot of the shadow and detail and variation on this paint job. Okay, and you don't have to be perfect, just like in most paint jobs. You just want to kind of get the gist of what you're trying to get painted, and already you can see you have an interesting looking coating here. And then we can kind of leave that be for a moment. So let's grab our next color, which is going to be our outer shell color. I haven't decided what that's going to be, but I think what I'm going to use is this turquoise here. I'm going to rinse out my brush, wipe it off. It's still damp. I'm going to use this turquoise for the outer shell. Now for the outer shell, we might have to use a bit more paint, but I can't imagine it's going to be an enormous amount to get the look we want. So I'm going to get my brush, wipe paint off, and then start on the different layers. Just dragging it around to the edges first, and then coming back in. Now there's some interesting horns and stuff on this sculpt that you can really put some effort into making those look good, or you can just choose to ignore them and leave them as part of the blue. I'm going to come back since it's not going to take long, and I am going to lighten those up and give them some depth. But first let's focus on covering these plates and giving them the impression that they are blue. And I'm, again, not putting all the effort into the world into this. Now, when you're doing humans and stuff, this technique can't work all the time. Depending on the sculpt, sometimes you can get it to do what you want, but a lot of the times you're going to feel like your human's very nondescript and not painted well. On monsters like this, it's hit or miss, but the more depth and texture there is, the easier it is to pull off, okay? And as you can see, with very little effort and only spending really just a couple minutes here, we've already got an interesting looking model going. Again, not putting a ton of effort into this, just trying to stay in the lines more than anything else. Not even going for amazing coverage. Staying in the lines is the most important part of this technique. Just don't overgo onto your other areas. So now we got to get underneath this face here. Best we can. Okay. So I've just stayed in the lines, and I've already created a really bright and interesting miniature at this point. I'm going to get red. This is Cardinal red. This isn't Dollar Tree, or this isn't Walmart paint here. This is folk art. I think I got this at either, I don't know, Hobby Lobby or Michael's maybe. Or maybe during the I don't know where you get it. I think it's a specific brand you can get at certain spots. I'm not sure. So I'm going to get inside the mouth, and I'm just going to do the same thing, just with a thin coat. I'm just going to come in here and capture the main area without a ton of detail with that red. Now let's come and get a light color khaki and try to hit these spikes and teeth. So for the spikes, we want to really take our time, and we do have to kind of saturate these because we got blue on them, and we don't want the blue in any of the cracks to show. I do have to go into work for a little bit this evening to help out with one of the guys needs a hand, and I'll say something. I would much rather someone call me and say that a task or they're trying to accomplish something and need a hand than to just not try. You know, tell me, hey, I want to do this, but I need help. Tell me that. Or say, hey, you know, whatever. Or even if they were just going to be, you know, a little overwhelmed. Hey, my regular tasks are going to be a bit of a burden today. Can you give me a hand? I'm not feeling great or whatever. This guy didn't say he's not feeling great. He's just trying to do something. But, you know, I would rather someone just be open with me and honest with me, and I am willing to help. It's when people become manipulative and lazy and uncaring about their tasks that I become irritated. So I do appreciate him reaching out and saying, hey, can you come in for a couple hours? I realize it's Sunday, but I can use some help. I do appreciate that. That's a big step. And having a high-performance team is to make sure everybody can openly communicate what's going on and ask for help when they need it. I'm just taking my time to make sure I get decent coverage on these spikes. And you don't actually need to make sure you have the same exact intensity of paint on each one either. You can use different saturations, and they can be varied a little bit. And again, very little effort in this so far, and we already have a pretty decent looking mini. Let's come back and get the spikes on this side. So this first technique with no base is probably about, I don't know, 7 or 8 minutes. Well, it says I'm at 10.5 minutes, though I did a little bit of an intro. So we can come back and do all the bases at once because I'm going to be making those the same. But this is good enough to throw on the tabletop and capture what you needed to capture right there. You use 3 colors, very little intensity. The colors are bright and vibrant and look good. Next technique. let's do a speed paint one. Okay, so to do the speed paint one, I'm just getting a piece of masking tape to use as my speed paint palette. We're just going to use the other side of the same piece of cardboard. So when you're using speed paint, you want to use your one that has the most amount of white available. And then what you want to do is you want to get your undercoat color and use your lightest colors first. So for my base undertone color, I'm going to use what's called Pallid Bone. And this might not be exactly what I want, but it could be amazing. We'll see in a moment. Okay, using a damp, clean brush, which this one's clean, and now it's damp. We want to pull that out a little bit and thin it out, and then we want to take our time, stain the lines real quick, and you want to get it in the grooves with the speed paint, okay? And just take your time and make sure you stain the lines. And you're going to get a decent result. Now you'll see instantly that this model is not as bright and vivid as the last one was. We're doing a comparable amount of work. If you get some spots that you're a little heavy or thick on your speed paint, you can just kind of hit it with your brush again and move it somewhere else. You can either drag it or pick it up and move it. It's pretty forgiving as long as you don't wait too long. What will happen if you wait too long is it'll kind of start rubbing away the paint underneath, and it will not be as forgiving. Okay, so I think we're pretty happy here. With his underside, or her underside, I don't know, I didn't lift up this worm's flaps and check. But it's got a decent look. Now let's do the top half. What color could we use there to make it look a little interesting? We don't want to use the exact same color we used on the other one, though we could, I suppose. What I have here is a color called, nope, too bright. Tidal Wave, it's a blue. I don't want to use a blue, let's use a green. Here's Shamrock Green. I don't think I've ever used this. Let's check it out. Ooh, shake it. Yeah, I'm not sure I've ever used this. Hopefully it's not obnoxiously bright. It will be. Oh yeah, it's going to be bright. Oh well. With a damp, clean brush, I'm going to pull some of this out so it's not so thick. And I'm going to start on the top part here. I'm going to try not to get it on horns and teeth to save myself a step. But that would make it take all day, I'm guessing, so there's going to happen. When you're painting miniatures, you don't want it to become a burden. You want it to become something enjoyable. A lot of people tell me they don't know how to paint miniatures or they don't like to paint miniatures. And I think it's because if you don't like to, a lot of times it's because there comes like a certain burden a certain quality control aspect where you feel obligated to achieve a level of perfection that you don't feel like you can either dedicate the time to or accomplish. And I would say that as someone who's been painting for many, many years, and I am not a phenomenal painter by any means, that I have thrown stuff on my table that has been of very low quality at times. And yes, I felt a little bit of shame with it. And I've thrown stuff on my table that was amazing quality, and yet no one ever picked it up and judged it and said, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Now, Mrs. Doom does, because she supports what I do and she likes to encourage me, and she lets me know when I was lazy or when I've done an extra good job and stuff. She does critique, but most of my players say nothing. They just, wow, that's a cool mini. You know, they might look it up and say, wow, that's awesome. Or they might say, oh, I can't believe you made something for this. And that's the real reality, is that you're going to get, in some form, positive reinforcement if you're taking the time and putting the effort in, whether you succeed with an amazing paint job or if you just throw something on the table good enough to represent. People will notice and people will appreciate that effort. And for some people that have lack of imagination issues, or they don't have an idea of what you're describing, or they haven't got an idea of something to compare it to, for them, this is an enormous step, having a miniature to break that barrier between fantasy and reality, because they don't have the ability to see it in their head, or they don't know what they're looking at, or maybe you can't find a picture to help them. So I would say spending a little bit of time to make something good is better than not trying at all. Perfection is never required on this kind of stuff. Trust me. It's just going to take you a lot of time and not get you what you need. Now, if you're in a group that specifically is full of painters and stuff, I've never been in that situation. So I can't tell you what that might look like on the judgment end. Okay. So here we are. I think we're about 7 minutes on this. And pardon me, holy shit. We need to do the mouth. Fudge. The teeth and the horns. So for the mouth, I'm going to use bright red. I feel like my shaker is not as good as it was before, after I tried to do a big model on it, a big paint on it yesterday. I'm probably just imagining that. Did not need that much paint for what I just did, by the way. A tiny drop would have covered this mouth so easily. And then I'm just going to be careful not to get it on my teeth. There we go. And then for my horns, I'm going to get yellow. This is called Zealot Yellow. And I'm going to quickly hit this with the air gun on low, because I don't want to push any of the wet speed paint around. But I do want to kind of not have a bunch of wet when I'm trying to do spikes and teeth. Not perfect, I'll just have to be extra careful. And that hopefully is enough for what I need. Dry my brush off. Get the tip wet and clean. And then I'm going to hit these spikes very quickly. I'm going to hit the teeth very quickly. And I'm not putting an enormous amount of effort into that. Look at that. It's going to look okay, isn't it? Okay, so there's our second one, and he looks okay. Not bad, right? 2 down. Different kinds of paint jobs, they both look okay. Let's get the next one. I'm going to set this off to the side. I'm going to clean my brush. So for this one, we're going to use something a little crazier and a little different. We're going to get a brush, kind of a soft makeup brush from the Dollar Tree. We're going to get our base coat color, which our first color is going to be a lighter color. So let me put my speed paints back in their little trays. There we go. And I'm going to get something to use for that underside. And what I'm going to use is I'm going to use antique white. No, actually, I'm going to use ivory. Hold on. Ivory. And actually, you know what? Change of plan. I'm not using a makeup brush. I'm going to get a larger brush, like a size 3. I'm going to get it damp. There we go. And I'm going to make sure my paint's good and thin. Then I'm going to hit that underside quickly with this. Okay. And if you get it in the cracks, that's okay, because this is going to be a wash. We're going to do a wash on this. So a little bit of thin paint to get that underside. Just like that. A little bit more. Again, don't sweat if you get it in the cracks, because a wash will kind of repair that. Okay. Just come back around and make sure you have a good, really thin, even coat. Like that. Okay. Set that off to the side. I'm going to rinse out my brush, and then we're going to hit this with the air gun lightly. Very lightly. Okay. On low. Okay. Then we're going to pick our outer color. We're going to get our piece of cardboard back in the third brush still. I don't know what I'm using for my outer color. Let's try this light purple. Concord grape. It's probably going to be hideous. So I'm going to get water on my brush, put it on my cardboard, get my paint. There we go. Get it evenly in my brush. It's going to be almost impossible to miss your teeth and horns, but try, because you don't want it to put too much work coming back through. So make an effort to miss your teeth and horns, but don't kill yourself in the process. And I don't care how perfect I get it in every crack or anything. Again, if it gets in there, good. If not, good too. Okay. Now when you're on your sides here, I would recommend being careful to keep it from hitting that white where you went and put all that work in, because you don't want to have to come back, okay? You don't also, like if you're missing a couple spots here and there, don't sweat that. What's more important is that you're grabbing the most sticky uppy surface areas, and the other stuff's going to be okay. It's going to come out in the wash, as it were. So when you're trying to get decent looking stuff on the table quickly, you run into problems. One of the big ones is hesitation. You're like, I don't want to do a bad job. This miniature is pretty cool. I don't want this. I don't want that. You're gonna find obstacles to even get you started. I'm not gonna say it's true for everybody. Some people are just psyched to get down and paint. I have days where I'm like that, but I'm not always like that. Watch this dude called Craftman, with no T, Craftman. And he actually spoke about how you need to be motivated every day, but maybe you're only motivated once every so often. And I was thinking to myself, this dude understands it. All right. Hot air gun. Small brush, back to the size 1. This is my Army Painter starter brush. I'm not going to use the ivory. I'm going to grab some antique white. You can go really vivid on this, because don't forget, we are going to darken this up with a wash. So this super bright white I'm using here is not going to be a game changer in a bad way. I bet you could bullshit your way through this and not even paint the spikes, and people would just assume there were spikes there, even if they couldn't see them well. If you think every time you write a story or draw a picture that people look at every detail, most people don't. They just kind of gloss over it. We are so used to overstimulation from electronic devices and the pace of conversation and access to tons of information. We are so overstimulated that we have become literally terrible at appreciating things. And I'm not only speaking for me, I'm talking about as a population. I see it all the time. People don't appreciate effort. You send a detailed article, for example, explaining something, and people can't pay attention to catch all the details of it. They'll miss them. They'll come back and have questions that were blatantly outlined in your article you provided. And that's because of stimulation, I think. That's my theory on this. Overstimulation is leading into a decline for our appreciation. Okay, so we got most of our spikes covered good enough to where you're going to see spikes. I'm going to get in and get that one in the dark. There's another one back here I want to hit a little bit. Good. Hot air gun. After I rinse this brush out. I need soap in my rinse water. I like to put a tiny dot of Dawn dish liquid in my rinse water. Oh, before the wash, we got red in the mouth to do. So my red in the mouth is going to be this color called Flag Red. It's pretty bright, but since we're using a wash, my theory is that it will help. It'll brighten up, it'll darken up some. Okay. All right. So, using factory washes like quick shades and stuff is good to use, and making your own washes is good to use. You figure out what's best for you. Since we have a crowd here of people who may or may not have washes on hand, let's make one real quick. All right, so to start my wash, I have this this thingy here. What do you call it? Shot glass. I'm going to glue it to a paint lid so I don't spill it, because I've been real clumsy lately. Okay, so I'm going to get this, and I'm going to get a little bit of my dirty rinse water. Too much. About that, yay much, because I don't need a bunch of wash. Maybe even a little bit less. Just there. I didn't even fill the bottom up. I'm going to get a tiny drop, a tiny bit of isopropyl alcohol. This is 91%, but you can just kind of play with this and get it where you need it. Now, I want a darker color that's going to be kind of neutral, so I'm going to get Pavement, which is a craft paint color from Walmart. It's a dark gray with a little bit of a cool blue tone to it. Okay. And if I were making more wash, I would put a little bit of dish liquid in it. But since I'm using such a concentrated small amount, I will not do that. Okay, so I want to make sure my wash consistency isn't too thick. I want it to be kind of like soy sauce. And I'm noticing that mine's a little bit thick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some water and add it to break this down some. I want to get it just about like soy sauce. Okay, there we go. God damn it, I spilled my wash water everywhere. Hold on, I gotta unplug my phone charger. I'm gonna start a fire. All right, I'll clean that up after we finish this. All right, so the first thing I would do is get a piece of cardboard that you can kind of make sure you can not be oversaturated, and I want to try it somewhere out of the way. Yeah, I hear it dripping all over the damn place. All right, so my wash is a little too thick yet, but check this out. I'm going to finish this bottom part with it, then thin it down. I'm going to get it in there, thin it down, or put it in there and use it, getting all the cracks and everything. Just like that. Make sure I'm not missing any spots. Then I'm going to get a piece of fabric, and I'm going to dab off some of the outer edges of it, and that will help lighten it back up some. And it'll get a bit of a unique look. So that was way too light for what I wanted, or way too dark for what I wanted, I mean. But look, I'm just dabbing. And it looks all right. So now let's figure out what I did here. I need to lighten this up. I don't have much water left, but we're going to dump a little bit of water in there. And I'm going to get a little more rubbing alcohol. Let's thin that out pretty good. And we want it to be kind of like skim milk. With this, how dark I made it, soy sauce was too thick. Okay, so now we got like a skim milk consistency. And let's come back over and do the rest of the model with that. Okay. And voila. So we got 3 decent ones here and a giant mess. And rinse water all over the place. I mean, we got a big mess. So I'm going to have to go ahead and not do the 4th one right now because it's dripping down into crafting supplies and such. And I need to get everything off my bench. So we did 3 here in about 30 minutes-ish. And when they're dry and clear-coated and have the bases done, they're going to look good. The bases, I'm just going to do those in some desert-looking rock textures. And when these are all dry, they're going to be unique and interesting. So thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell icon, leave a comment, and all the stuff that makes the channel grow. And we'll see you next time. Also, I'd like to thank you and say check out the links in the description, Discord and website and all that. Discount code for minis. Have a nice day.